I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold, as she said, "Mom, we're going to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." And she hung up. 45 years of raising her, sacrificing for her, and she tossed me aside like trash. I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71. Until that moment I thought I knew my daughter. I'd become a widow 6 months earlier when Robert, my husband of 45 years, died of a heart attack at breakfast as we always ate together. That morning he'd poured my coffee with cream, handed me toast, kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. After he died, Angela had seemed more present. She visited 3 times a week, helped with funeral arrangements, came with me to the grocery store, and urged me to see a doctor. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she would say with that smile. I mistook for affection. Now I understood. It had been convenience, not concern. The beach house had been our sanctuary. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15. After years of hard work, every summer we made memories there. Birthdays, Christmases, long afternoons by the shore. Angela brought boyfriends, then later her husband Edward. I cooked, cleaned, did the laundry. It was tradition. I never thought she'd reduce all of it to cash. And the old Ford pickup, Robert babied that truck. He washed it every Sunday, changed the oil on schedule, parked it in the same shaded spot. It was the last piece of him. His scent lingered on the seats. Angela knew what it meant to me. On that uncomfortable green plastic chair at the clinic, surrounded by other patients, I didn't cry. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, one I hadn't felt since Robert's death. I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia," he'd said, "put this in your dresser drawer. If something happens to me, open it when you feel ready." I tucked it away, and under the fog of grief and funeral arrangements, I simply forgot. But now it waited for me back home. The nurse called me in. The doctor examined me and said I was in good health for my age, advising more rest and better eating. I nodded and smiled, while my thoughts kept circling back to that envelope, and to the icy tone in Angela's voice. I suspected Edward had directed this, that he'd always seen me as an annoyance. I left the office and walked slowly to the bus stop. Apparently I no longer had a car, according to Angela. As I waited, I couldn't help smiling. There was something almost poetic about it. My daughter believed she'd left me with nothing. What she didn't know was that Robert had been a man who planned ahead. The bus came. I sat by the window and watched the city pass. Houses, shops, people racing through their own lives and secrets. I had my secret too, and I was about to uncover it. At home I went straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser, and there was the manila envelope, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I could feel several documents inside. Robert had written my name on the front in his neat, familiar hand. I sat on the bed we had shared for decades, drew a breath, and opened the envelope like you would a precious gift. What I found took the breath from me. Legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. "My dear Antonia," he had written, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I lived, but I wanted to protect you from worry. Over the years I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich, and now you are on paper too." My hands shook as I turned the pages. There were deeds to houses across the city, a downtown condo, a small coastal motel, and the 20-story apartment building where Angela lived. Robert had been the silent owner for 10 years, holding assets in the name of a company I'd never heard of. The papers named me the sole beneficiary. Bank statements revealed accounts I'd never known existed, numbers that felt unreal for a man who'd spent 40 years as a bus driver. Robert had been more than a hard-working husband. He had been a careful, clever investor, and in that moment, everything changed. I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold as she said, "Mom, we're going on a trip to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." And she hung up just like that. 45 years raising her, sacrificing for her, and she discarded me like garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old. Until that moment, I thought I knew my daughter. I had become a widow 6 months ago. My husband Robert passed away from a heart attack while we were eating breakfast, just as we had done every morning for 45 years. As always, he kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been more present in my life, or so I believed. She came to visit 3 times a week, helped me with the funeral arrangements, accompanied me to the grocery store, and even suggested I see a doctor for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with that smile I thought was love. But now I understood it was for convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary for years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15, with a lot of hard work and sacrifice. Every summer we'd go there, building memories, celebrating birthdays and Christmases. Angela would bring her boyfriends, and later her husband Edward. I would cook for everyone, clean, and do the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And the car, that old Ford pickup truck, Robert cared for like his own child. He washed it every Sunday, changed the oil religiously, and always parked it in the same spot under the shade of the tree. Angela knew what that truck meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of him. His scent still lingered on the seats. When she hung up, I stayed there on that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by other sick people. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Robert's death, because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in the drawer of your dresser. If something happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." I had put it away without much thought. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The nurse called me into the office. The doctor examined me and said I was in good health for my age, that I just needed to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Angela's voice, and how Edward was probably behind all of it. He had never liked me. He always saw me as a nuisance. I left the office and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela. But as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My daughter thought she had left me with nothing. What she didn't know was that Robert, my dear Robert, had always been a man who planned ahead. The bus arrived, and I sat by the window. I watched the city go by, the houses, the stores, people rushing everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my room. I opened the dresser drawer, and there was the manila envelope, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Robert had written my name on the front in his neat handwriting. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years, and took a deep breath. It was starting to get dark outside, and the house was filling with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a birthday gift. What I found inside would change everything. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. "My dear Antonia, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worry. Over the years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have." I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Angela had lied about me. She had made up a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Robert's truck back too." That will be more difficult, Mrs. Brooks. The truck was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it. How is that possible? Apparently you signed that power of attorney a few months ago after your husband's death. Don't you remember? There it was. The moment Angela had started planning all of this, I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought to me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance arrangements. I had been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. I understand, Mr. Peterson. Is there any way to get it back? We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion. Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me. Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings I was the poor widow everyone knew. I would go out to buy necessities, talk to the neighbors and keep up appearances, but in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I studied Robert's documents, spoke with Miss Peterson, and planned my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Robert had been much smarter than I had imagined. Every one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Angela lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had a lot of debt. He had taken out loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he would be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson called me one Friday with important news. Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also got Robert's truck back. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine. And when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. There was silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? Completely sure. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I really am. I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe? No, I want you to give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon. I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Aurora came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. Antonia, did you know that Edward is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral. But it turns out the apartment isn't his. Really? Yes. And it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess. What a complicated situation. Yes? And the worst part is apparently Edward lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business, he just wanted to escape the debts he had here. Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there watching his plan unfold perfectly. Thank you, my love, I said to the sky. Thank you for taking care of me even after your death. The next day, Mr. Peterson called me early. Mrs. Brooks, I have some news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone. Alone? Yes. Apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big fight. I see. Did you send the letter? I'm going to send it today. She should receive it tomorrow. I hung up the phone and stood there in the kitchen feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Angela arrived at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew this because Aurora, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. Antonia, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go in with one suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale with dark circles under her eyes as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Antonia, when the doorman asked her for the keys she didn't have, she had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Angela had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Peterson called me that same afternoon. Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it in person. Perfect. How long did we give? 30 days to vacate the apartment as per legal standards. But Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? She is your daughter after all. Mr. Peterson, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications. I have considered them, Mr. Peterson. All of them. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Angela's face when she read the letter, the initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, as if she had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 hours in the morning. It was Angela, and her voice sounded desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice. How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called, wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments Inc. Do you know this company? Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey. I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter is legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her, probably when the money ran out or when he realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see. A poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. Mom, she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I had read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost just like when she was a child and came to tell me about her school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey. No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things, and now her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure. All the debts? Yes, Mom. So many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She started to cry, real tears of genuine desperation. For a moment my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office. The ease with which she had discarded me. The way she had spoken as if I were a burden. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off with that woman. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live. There was the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, honey, this will always be your home. Angela looked at me with surprise as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom? After everything that happened, you are my daughter, Angela. That will never change. She got up and this time she hugged me. It was a desperate hug from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they could find. I hugged her back too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are. Angela left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned. Broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she suspected nothing. To her I was still the poor abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, and believe she had found a refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I would teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night I called Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Brooks, I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That will take time, but it's feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I want you to keep this absolutely secret. No one can know I am behind this investigation. Of course, Mrs. Brooks. May I ask what your final plan is? My plan, Mr. Peterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter. But first she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Robert had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had a special occasion like this one. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I had all the good cards in my hand. Angela moved into my house the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Everything that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she had slept in during her teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of her movements. She had gone from living in a luxury condo to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. Mom, I found this in the apartment, she said, showing me a manila envelope. It was among Edward's things. It has your name on it. It was another one of Robert's envelope. My heart sped up, but I kept my composure. My name? How strange. Yes. Look, she showed me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written on it in Robert's handwriting. But this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me. Angela said, "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Antonia, if you are reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Central Bank downtown branch. The number, there is something there that can help you help her. But use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert." Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box. Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. I didn't either. I lied. Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Mom, maybe there's something important in there. Documents. Or I don't know. Maybe something valuable that can help us. The desperation in her voice was palpable. Angela was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before I showed her the complete reality. "Okay," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. Edward lied about everything, Mom, not just the business, but the debts too. I thought he only owed a little bit of money, but it turns out he owes over and the worst part is, he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents to handle the banking for our joint account. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know? I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Edward is now. He just disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if he vanished. Perfect. Edward had run away like the rat he had always been, leaving Angela to face the consequences of her actions alone. In a way, he had done me a favor. Now, my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when he abandoned me, betrayal by someone she had completely trusted. I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know things were so bad. I didn't either, Mom. I thought Edward loved me, that we were going to build something together. But it turns out I was just an easy way for him to get money and documents. Angela started to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize who he really was? It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn her that Edward never seemed trustworthy, but that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable mother. Love can be blinding sometimes, honey. Don't blame yourself. But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your truck, your things and all to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're two poor women trying to survive because of me. It's in the past. Angela, we'll be okay. No, it's not. Now we're both in trouble because of my mistakes. You lost everything Dad left you. And I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive. If she only knew. I thought that at this very moment I had more money than she could possibly imagine. That I was the owner of the building where she lived. That I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next day we went to the bank.
Angela was nervous, hopeful.
I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, and opened box number 2. Inside were jewels. Many jewels, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Robert's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Angela gasped. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes. Look at this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewels were worth approximately $200,000. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But Mom, we could sell some of the pieces. With this money you could get your beach house back, and I could pay off some of Edward's debts. There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Angela's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Edward had created. She hadn't learned a thing yet. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts? What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have, and technically I don't own anything. Everything was in Edward's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, you won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer is going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Angela spread them out on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. Mom, I think I can get $180,000 for the jewels, she said one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties. How ironic the situation was. Angela was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a man who had abandoned her, with money from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Angela had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible but also more fragile. That night, while she was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Peterson. Miss Brooks, I have important news. We managed to locate Edward. Where is he? I asked. In Paris, just as your daughter suspected. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to get French residency through a fake marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned. A fake marriage? Yes. Apparently the girl needs papers and he needs a way to stay in Europe without being deported. But the most important thing is that we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. That means Angela can get out of the debts. With this evidence? I asked. Yes, we can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter won't have to pay anything for what Edward did behind her back. It was perfect. I had a way to save Angela from all her debts legally, without her suspecting that I had the money to do it. Mr. Peterson, I want you to start the legal process immediately. Don't tell my daughter anything yet. I want the process to be completely finished before I tell her. I don't want to give her false hope. Understood. This will take about 3 weeks. Maybe a month. Perfect. When I hung up, Angela looked at me with curiosity. Who was that, Mom? A lady who was asking about Mrs. Davis, our neighbor on the corner. She had the wrong number. Lying had become easy. Every day that passed, I felt more comfortable with this double life I was leading. On one hand, I was the poor, abandoned mother Angela believed me to be. On the other, I was a wealthy woman, silently orchestrating my daughter's salvation and education. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Angela struggle with decisions she never had to make. How to stretch money for food. How to negotiate with creditors. How to look for a job when her credit history was ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education. Mom, I went to 3 job interviews today, she told me one evening, coming home with swollen feet and a tired face. 2 of them told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. The third one offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I asked. I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for over 40 years preparing to clean offices at night, broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problem. Are you sure you can handle so much physical work? I asked. I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's bad enough that you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Angela. No, Mom, this is your home and I'm here because of your generosity. But I'm not going to take advantage of it forever. One night, while Angela was on her first cleaning shift, Aurora came to visit. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea and looking at the family photos on the wall. Antonia, I have to ask you something. Did you know Angela was going to come back in these conditions? What do you mean? Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Edward was, and now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning job, living with you again. Life takes many turns. Aurora, yes. But there's something else. I've been watching Angela these days, and she looks different, not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important. Aurora had always been very perceptive. What do you think she learned? I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally. Maybe, Aurora, can I tell you something? When Angela left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her, but here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter, Aurora. Yes. But not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated. If Aurora only knew the complete truth that I had the power to solve all of Angela's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the full lesson. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I asked. I think you're doing what a good mother would do, but I also think Angela needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you. What do you mean? I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you. Aurora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Angela to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening. I've seen her these past few days, Antonia. The way she talks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now, she's a grown woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you. That night, when Angela returned from her job, I saw her arrive tired but with a new dignity. She had earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. How was your first day? I asked. Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other ladies who worked there helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Johnson, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently. Mrs. Johnson? Yes. She's 60 years old and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. She says it's not the job she dreamed of, but it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman. She is. She said something that made me think a lot. She told me there are two types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have. She asked me which group I was in. And what did you tell her? I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world. A family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a worthless man. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people." Angela poured herself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. "Mom, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart." Angela, no, let me finish. "You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey, but I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes." Mr. Peterson called me the next morning. "Miss Brooks, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Edward's debts." It was time. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone quietly watching over her. "Mr. Peterson, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth." Mr. Peterson arranged the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Angela that I had made an appointment with a lawyer who could help her with her legal problems, but I didn't explain the detail. She agreed to come, although she was nervous about the cost of the consultation. "Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses." "Don't worry about that now, honey. Let's just hear what he has to say." We arrived at Mr. Peterson's office on time. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a little big on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of bad news on her endless list of problems. Mr. Peterson greeted us with his usual professional smile. Miss Brooks, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us," Angela replied, "although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees." "That's exactly what we're going to talk about," Miss Peterson said, exchanging a look with me. "But first, I need you to review these documents." Mr. Peterson handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. "I don't understand. These documents say that Edward forged my signature, that there is evidence of fraud, that I am not responsible for the debts." "That's right. We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud." "But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation?" "I don't have money for this." Mr. Peterson looked at me. It was my moment. "Angela, there's something I need to tell you." "What, Mom?" I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. "Your father left me more than you knew. Much more." "What do you mean, Mr. Peterson?" "Show her the other documents." Mr. Peterson took out a second folder and handed it to Angela. This time, the documents were the property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire fortune Robert had built in secret. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally comprehension. "Mom, this says you are the owner of the building where I lived." "Yes." "And that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments." "Yes." "This means that when I sold the beach house, it was my house and the sale was fraudulent. I already got it back." Angela stared at the papers, trying to process the information. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the doctor's office." "You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night?" "Yes." There was a long, tense silence. Angela closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. "Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me?" This was the question I had been waiting for weeks. "Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way." "What?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity. It was love. It was trust." Angela started to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. I abandoned you when you needed me most. Yes. I treated you like garbage. Yes. And you saved me anyway. Yes. But not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself. Mr. Peterson discreetly intervened. Miss Brooks, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning job I got. You can quit if you want, I said. But I hope you don't. Why? Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn. Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. Do you forgive me, Mom? I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself? I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes. Angela, the important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes. Mr. Peterson left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson. What lesson? That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you, that no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela. I know, but I also know that I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We left Mr. Peterson's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Angela expected. Even though she now knew I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. Mom, I need to finish what I started, she told me one afternoon as she was getting ready for work. I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened. Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever. It's not a punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now. I watched her put on her work uniform. Something unthinkable a few months ago when she lived in the luxury condo with Edward. But there was something different in her posture, in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had arrived crying at my door. She was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Aurora came to visit me that afternoon, as she had done every few days since Angela had returned. Antonia, there are some very strange rumors going around the neighborhood. What kind of rumors? People are saying that you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Angela leaving a very elegant lawyer's office downtown, and then they saw her paying off all her debts at the bank. People talk a lot, Aurora. Yes, but they're also saying you got your beach house back, and that somehow you managed to solve all of Angela's legal problems. That costs a lot of money, Antonia. Aurora knew me too well to fool her for long. What do you want to know exactly? I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about her situation. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat across from her. It was time to be honest with someone else. Robert left me more than anyone knew. Aurora, much more. How much more? Enough so that Angela and I never have to worry about money again. Aurora was silent for a moment, processing the information. And why did you pretend to be poor all these months? Because I needed Angela to learn something she couldn't learn any other way. I told her the whole story. Angela's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks of watching her hit rock bottom, and finally the revelation in Mr. Peterson's office. Antonia, that is brilliant and terrible at the same time. Terrible? Yes. Because you let your own daughter suffer when you could have helped her immediately, but also brilliant because I understand why you did it. You do. Yes, Angela needed to learn the value of the things she had lost. If you had simply given her money to solve her problems, she would have learned that there's always someone who will rescue her from the consequences of her bad decisions. Exactly. But Antonia, didn't it hurt you to see her suffer? Every day, every night I saw her crying. Every morning I saw her get up to go to work tired and defeated. But I knew that if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't have learned the full lesson. And do you think she learned it? Look for yourself. Angela knows that she now has access to enough money to live comfortably, but she chose to keep her job. She knows she can move to a better place, but she decided to stay here with me. She knows she doesn't have to worry about the debts, but she's using her own savings to help other women in similar situations. She's helping other women. Yes. She became friends with the ladies she and how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything, she replied. No anger. No sadness. No desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No. Not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Angela who married him no longer exists. This Angela has nothing to talk to him about. I was struck by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength forged from hitting rock bottom and rising on her own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? She asked. What? That true love isn't about hearing what you want to hear. True love teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a hard lesson, but a necessary one. Edward told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special, convinced me I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationship. That night, after Angela went to her room to study, I sat on the porch alone, staring at the stars, thinking of Robert. I had promised him I would take care of our daughter, and at last I felt I had honored that promise, not by giving her money when she needed it, but by teaching her to care for herself. Not by solving her problems, but by letting her learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday, and we planned to visit the beach house together. The first time since I had reclaimed it. Are you ready? I asked as we got into the truck. I think so, she said quietly. The drive was peaceful. When we arrived, Angela paused, gazing at the house where we had spent countless summers. It looks exactly the same, she said softly. Some things don't change, I said, but others do. I am not the same person who sold this house. We walked inside. The house was immaculate, exactly as Robert and I had maintained it over the years. Angela moved through each room, touching the furniture and lingering over family photos. Mom, I want to apologize, she said. You already apologized, honey. No, I want to apologize specifically for this house. Not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's forgive. This house represents 40 years of family summers, birthdays, Christmases. Dad built that porch with his own hands. You planted the garden. I learned to swim at that beach. And you turned it all into money to fund a worthless man's adventure. She sank onto the sofa where Robert had read on Sunday mornings. Do you know what hurts the most? She asked. What? That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner, hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He is here, Angela. He has always been here. I know. And I also know he's proud of how you handled everything. We spent the day together at the house, cooking, cleaning, fixing small details. It became a ritual of reconnection, not just with the house, but with the values it embodied. As the sun set, we sat on the porch Robert had built, gazing at the ocean. Mom, I have a proposal. Angela said. What is it? I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women leaving domestic violence situations. A place where they can rebuild their lives. It was perfect. Robert would have loved knowing his beach house would help other families. That's a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom? The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to those in need. He was right. We returned home that night. Our relationship renewed. We were no longer mother and daughter bound by obligation. We were two women consciously choosing to build a life together, founded on love, respect, and purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Robert silently. We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understands what truly matters. And for the first time since his passing, I felt him answer. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived. Not as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. In the end, we had gained something far more valuable than money. An authentic relationship built on a foundation no future crisis could shake. 6 months later, life had found a new balance. Angela completed her social work studies with excellent grades, and I used my resources to establish a foundation to support women in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Angela exclaimed one morning, holding an envelope. I was accepted into the master's program. I start next semester. But Mom, I want to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving from my job at the city. The salary isn't high, but I've learned to live with the essentials and value every dollar I earn. Are you sure? We can easily afford it. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Aurora visited that afternoon, as she had every Friday for months. Antonia, I have to confess something, she said, pouring tea. At first I thought you were cruel to Angela, and now, I think you're the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Really look at her. It was true. The Angela before me studying for her exams was completely transformed. She had serenity, confidence grounded in achievement, and an understanding that money is a tool, not a goal. She had learned to help others, measure value beyond material wealth, and honor her own effort. That night, as we dined on the porch, Angela shared one last note. Mom, I got a strange letter today from Edward. He's in prison in France for marriage fraud. He says he regrets everything and wants my forgiveness. She paused, reflecting, then smiled faintly. I don't feel anger, Mom. I feel nothing. That part of my life is over, and I'm stronger for it.